The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with low murmurs, the air thick with skepticism. Zakar stood in the center, his tall, battle-scarred form a stark contrast to the pristine, glowing architecture surrounding him. He shifted his piercing gaze across the room, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "I am not here to entertain debate," Zakar began, his tone laced with grim authority. "I am here to save you from destruction. The humans are not what you think." A ripple of disdain passed through the council members. One representative, a sleek, reptilian figure adorned in ceremonial robes, leaned forward. "Humans," the voice dripped with incredulity. "A species so primitive they only recently broke free of their own gravity well?" Zakar didn't flinch. "That was your first mistake, underestimating them. I made the same error once. And I watched them dismantle everything I believed unshakable." The murmurs grew louder, but Zakar's voice rose to silence them. "You see them as insignificant because they do not match our metrics. Their biology is fragile. Their technology is rudimentary. But humans defy expectation in ways none of you can comprehend." A flick of his wrist brought a holographic display to life, casting a blue glow over the chamber. It showed grainy footage of a small human spacecraft navigating a treacherous asteroid field. The alien audience sneered at the primitive design, but Zakar continued, his voice sharp. "This was their first contact with us. A single ship stumbled into our sector, unarmed, unaware, and yet," he paused, his gaze hardening. "When we initiated our automated defenses, they responded within seconds. Not with panic, not with retreat. They adapted." The footage shifted to show the human craft weaving through the deadly field, outmaneuvering advanced weapon systems. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the small ship evaded capture, slipping into hyperspace before Zakar's forces could react. "They deciphered our language within days," Zakar continued. "Within weeks, they had decrypted our most secure communications. And yet, when we sent envoys to gauge their intentions, they were cordial." A representative, her crystalline body refracting light, scoffed. "Cordial? You speak of them as though they are more than opportunistic scavengers." Zakar's gaze snapped to her. "They are predators, but not in the way you think. Humans do not hunt for conquest, they hunt for survival. And they learn with every step." He took a deliberate breath before continuing, his voice softer now, almost reflective. "When I first encountered them, I saw what you see now: fragility, chaos, irrelevance. But I also saw something I could not understand. A species that thrives on adversity, that sees obstacles not as barriers, but as puzzles to solve. We dismissed them as primitive, and they turned that arrogance into their weapon." The hologram changed again, this time showing a human cityscape, its sky darkened by alien ships. Zakar gestured toward the image. "This is New Themis, one of their colonies on the edge of explored space. We believed taking it would be effortless. We deployed a strike force 10 times their size, equipped with the finest weapons in the galaxy." The image shifted to chaos, explosions, collapsing buildings, and human fighters using makeshift weapons to hold the line. "They fought with scrap metal and ingenuity," Zakar said. "They repurposed farming drones into guided missiles. Their civilians became soldiers overnight. And when we finally breached their defenses," he paused, his voice tightening, "they detonated their own power cores." A stunned silence fell over the chamber. Zakar let it linger before continuing. "Do you know what they said when we captured survivors? We had to buy time." "Time for what?" we wondered. "We soon found out. While we were occupied on New Themis, they launched an assault on our forward base. With stolen weapons and technology they barely understood, they obliterated a fleet that had stood unchallenged for centuries." The crystalline representative interjected, her tone sharp. "A fluke. Desperation breeds recklessness." Zakar rounded on her, his voice rising. "Recklessness? No. Calculated sacrifice. Humans do not act without reason. Every loss, every setback, they use it to grow stronger. And they are unrelenting." He stepped closer to the center of the chamber, his voice dropping to a near whisper, forcing the council to lean in. "Do you know what they call themselves? a young species. They see themselves not as a culmination, but as a beginning. While we stagnate, content in our superiority, they evolve. And they will not stop. Zakar's voice hardened again. This is not speculation. This is experience. I have fought alongside and against many species, and none possess their resilience, their creativity, he paused, searching for the word, their defiance. The hologram faded, leaving only Zakar's imposing silhouette. He let the silence settle, the weight of his words sinking into the room. Then, with quiet finality, he said, "You laugh at them now. You dismiss them as primitive. But mark my words, humans are not bound by the limits we set. And if you choose to challenge them, you will learn this the hard way." With that, Zakar stepped back, his gaze unwavering as the council members exchanged uneasy glances. The room, once filled with smug certainty, now brimmed with an unsettling doubt. The first clash between humanity and the council's forces was supposed to be a formality. A fleet of advanced warships, equipped with centuries of perfected technology, descended upon a small human outpost orbiting a barren moon. Zakar had been present, observing the operation from the flagship's command deck. It was a standard demonstration of power, a calculated show of dominance to force a surrender. But the humans didn't surrender. Zakar remembered how the outpost went dark just before their ships arrived. Scans showed no defensive systems capable of withstanding an attack, and yet the human facility seemed prepared. When the fleet drew closer, an explosion erupted from the moon's surface. Not a desperate act of resistance, but a precise detonation that disabled the Council's scanning systems. Within minutes, human ships emerged from the shadow of a nearby asteroid field. They weren't sleek or intimidating. They were cobbled together amalgamations of salvaged parts, some barely holding together. And yet, the way they moved betrayed a level of coordination Zakar hadn't expected. They didn't charge headlong into battle. They flanked, using the asteroid field as cover, and struck key ships in the Council's formation with surgical precision. Zakar had ordered a counterattack, confident in their technological superiority. But what followed shattered that confidence. Human ships didn't fight like any species he had encountered. They seemed to anticipate every maneuver, exploiting weaknesses Zakar hadn't even realized existed. They used their smaller, less powerful ships as decoys, drawing fire away from their main fleet, which delivered devastating strikes to the Council's carriers. And then there was their hacking. Zakar's fleet was equipped with state-of-the-art firewalls, systems designed to repel even the most advanced digital infiltrations. Yet, within hours, human operatives had breached their networks, scrambling targeting systems and redirecting drone units to fire on their own allies. It wasn't just ingenuity, it was audacity. Zakar recalled a moment during the battle when one of their commanders reported a transmission from a human fleet. It was a simple message: "You are predictable." The Council's forces managed to regroup, but the cost was severe. When the battle finally ended, the humans had retreated, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and questions. They had lost ships, yes, but their true goal had been achieved. They had proven a point. They could fight back. And they had learned. Zakar's next encounter with humanity came weeks later, in an ambush that caught even him off guard. His fleet was pursuing what they believed to be a retreating human convoy. It was a trap. The humans had lured them into a nebula dense with electromagnetic interference, where their advanced sensors and communication systems were rendered useless. Zakar's ships were forced to rely on visual navigation, something they hadn't done in centuries. The humans, on the other hand, seemed to thrive in the chaos. They used the nebula's interference to their advantage, deploying mines and launching coordinated attacks that appeared to come from every direction. Zakar had never seen anything like it. They fought like they had been born in the nebula, their tactics chaotic yet undeniably effective. What struck Zakar most was their ability to adapt. Every strategy his forces employed was countered almost immediately. Humans didn't just react, they evolved. In the midst of the battle, they managed to capture one of the Council's frigates, a feat Zakar initially dismissed as a minor setback. But when the frigate reappeared weeks later, now outfitted with human modifications and deployed against them, He realized the full extent of their capabilities. Zakhar's forces managed to escape the nebula, but not without significant losses. And in their retreat, they left behind more than just wreckage. They left behind knowledge the humans would undoubtedly use to prepare for the next encounter. The humans' resilience was unlike anything Zakhar had ever encountered. Most species, when faced with overwhelming odds, would retreat, negotiate, or surrender. Humans, however, saw every battle as an opportunity to improve. Their defeats were never final. They were stepping stones to something greater. Zakhar's voice echoed in his mind as he addressed the council later. They do not fight like we do. They do not think like we do. Every encounter makes them stronger, and every loss becomes a lesson. The council had dismissed his warnings then, as they did now. But Zakhar knew the truth. He had seen it firsthand. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Their ingenuity, their adaptability, their relentless determination, these were not the traits of a species that could be conquered. They were the traits of a species destined to thrive, no matter the cost. Zakhar's final confrontation with the humans was not on the battlefield, but in the heart of their territory. After years of escalating skirmishes, the council had decided to deliver a decisive blow. A fleet larger and more powerful than any the galaxy had ever seen was assembled, a show of force meant to overwhelm humanity and put an end to their defiance. Zakhar had argued against it, but his warnings were ignored. The council was confident. Humanity would fall. As the fleet approached Earth, it became clear that this was no ordinary planet. The humans had fortified their homeworld in ways Zakhar hadn't imagined. Orbital platforms bristling with weapon systems surrounded the planet, their designs crude but undeniably effective. Massive arrays of satellites, some armed, others serving as decoys, created a dense network that made navigation treacherous. Humanity had turned their own vulnerabilities into strengths. The Council's fleet moved into position, preparing for a coordinated assault. The humans responded not with panic, but with precision. Their defenses activated in unison, creating a web of firepower that rivaled the Council's own. But the real surprise came when human ships began to emerge from hidden positions, behind moons, from asteroid fields, and even from within their own orbital defenses. They didn't just defend, they counterattacked with a ferocity that stunned Zakhar's forces. The humans had anticipated the Council's strategies and planned accordingly. Their ships were faster, their weapons more adaptable, and their tactics more ruthless. They targeted key vessels, crippling the Council's command structure within minutes of the battle's start. Zakhar had expected resistance, but not like this. The humans fought as though they had nothing to lose, every move calculated to maximize damage. They weren't just defending their home, they were sending a message. This was their line, and no one would cross it. Amid the chaos, Zakhar noticed something that chilled him to his core. The humans weren't just relying on brute force or superior tactics. They were using technology they had taken from the Council, technology they had modified and improved. Ships equipped with hybrid systems that blended human ingenuity with alien precision were wreaking havoc on the fleet. The humans had turned the Council's own advancements against them. Zakhar ordered a retreat, but it was too late. The humans had anticipated that as well. As the Council's ships began to pull back, they were ambushed by hidden fleets that had been lying in wait. It was a masterstroke of strategy, one that left Zakhar in awe even as he watched his fleet fall apart. In the end, Zakhar's flagship was captured. He expected execution or interrogation, but what he found instead was something far more unnerving. The humans didn't gloat. They didn't revel in their victory. They simply studied him, their expressions unreadable. A human commander, a figure clad in a patched-together uniform, approached Zakhar. Their voice was calm, almost sympathetic.
"You could have avoided this," they said.
"You should have listened." Zakhar remained silent, his pride warring with the weight of his defeat. The humans didn't press him. They didn't need to. Their message was clear. They had not only survived, but had become something far greater. As Zakhar was escorted away, he couldn't help but reflect on everything he had seen. Humanity's capacity for adaptation, their refusal to be broken, and their ability to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. These were not traits of a species that could be conquered. They were traits of a species destined to rise above even the greatest empires. Zakar knew then that the Council had not just lost a battle, they had lost the war. Humanity was no longer a fledgling species struggling to find its place in the galaxy. They had become a force to be reckoned with, one that would shape the future of the galaxy in ways no one could predict. Zakar stood before the Council once again, but this time, the room was far from the confident, dismissive gathering it had been before. The chamber was silent, filled with representatives who had seen the reports, heard the stories, and could no longer deny the truth. The once proud Galactic Council was now a fractured body, their arrogance shattered by the unyielding force of humanity. "They warned you," Zakar began, his voice calm but edged with bitterness. "And I warned you, yet you refused to see. You believed yourselves untouchable, incapable of defeat. And now look around you. Where are your fleets? Your strongholds? Your certainty?" He allowed the silence to stretch, the weight of his words pressing down on the room. The holographic display behind him activated, showing images of human ships patrolling former Council territories. Entire sectors once governed by the Council were now under human control, not through occupation but by influence. "They didn't conquer us in the way we feared," Zakar continued. "They didn't need to. Humanity's strength lies not in domination, but in persistence. They dismantled the very foundation of our power, piece by piece, until all that was left was the truth we tried so hard to ignore." One of the representatives, a pale, insectoid figure, shifted uneasily. "They are still just one species. Their numbers are limited. Surely, they cannot hold this position indefinitely." Zakar's expression hardened. "That is your second mistake, assuming that humanity fights alone. They don't. The humans didn't just defeat us, they inspired others. Dozens of species we subjugated or dismissed now rally to their cause. Not out of fear, but out of hope. Hope that the galaxy can be something greater than the stagnant order we imposed." The hologram shifted to show a coalition of ships, human, alien, and hybrids, working together in harmony. It was a sight the Council had never imagined, and yet it was undeniable. Humanity had achieved in decades what the Council had failed to do in millennia: unite the disparate species of the galaxy under a shared purpose. Zakar stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the room. "They are not like us. They do not seek power for power's sake. They do not crave control. What drives them is something far more dangerous, an insatiable need to grow, to learn, to create. And that makes them unstoppable." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "You ask how they can maintain their position. The answer is simple: they will adapt, as they always have. They will turn every challenge into an opportunity, every failure into a lesson. And they will not stop, because that is who they are." The crystalline representative who had scoffed at Zakar before now spoke, her voice uncertain. What would he suggest we do?" Zakar's gaze bore into her unyielding. "We must change. Not for their sake, but for ours. The humans have shown us what is possible when we set aside arrogance and embrace the unknown. If we continue to resist, we will be swept aside. But if we choose to learn from them, to work with them instead of against them, there may yet be a future for us." The room remained silent, the weight of Zakar's words pressing down on every representative. He knew that some would never accept the truth, that their pride would blind them to the reality unfolding before their eyes. But he also knew that change was inevitable. Humanity had already rewritten the rules of the galaxy, and nothing could undo what had been set into motion. Zakar took a final breath, his voice soft but resolute. "The age of the Council is over. The age of humanity has begun. Whether we survive it will depend on what we choose to become." As Zakar stepped back, the hologram faded, leaving the Council in darkness. The choice was theirs, but Zakar knew one thing with certainty: humanity would not wait for them to decide. The galaxy had been irrevocably changed, and the future belonged to those willing to embrace it.